Welcome to Conversations on the Oaks. This podcast is supported by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. I'm Eddie Francis, your host. Dillard is under new leadership. President Rochelle Ford began her tenure as Dillard's 8th president on July 1st, 2022. President Ford comes to Dillard from Elon University, where she served as their Dean of the School of Communications. There, she led more than 80 faculty and 1,500 students with 6 undergraduate major programs of study and 1 graduate program. President Ford is a 2021 fellow from the Clark Atlanta University HBCU Executive Leadership Institute. Here is our interview with President Rochelle L. Ford. The views expressed on Conversations on the Oaks do not necessarily reflect the views of Dillard University or any parties associated with the university. Speaking of being President Rochelle L. Ford, how does it feel to hear yourself referred to as President Rochelle Ford?
It feels great. It feels like it's a humbling honor. The weightiness of being entrusted with Dillard University. Dillard is such an amazing HBCU, the oldest state of Louisiana, the legacy of leadership, and what a humbling opportunity to serve. And that's what I'm here to do. And so to hear President Rochelle Ford, it's a wow moment. But at the same time, it's a moment where I have a lot of respect for the position and the role. I look at the leaders like Dr. Kimbrough, who has just raised the reputation of the university. He's the hip hop president, but he got alumni engaged. He led us through 2 hurricanes. I think about the legacy of Marveline Hughes, and she got us through Katrina and able to continue to operate. I think about Dr. Lomax and all that he has done here at Dillard to increase the enrollment and to continue to develop programs. And then now he's still advocating on behalf of HBCUs through the UNCF. What amazing leaders. And the leaders before the 3 of them, or the 2 or 3 of them, and now me. But what I can guarantee is that I'm going to lead from the heart. I'm going to lead from a place of wanting to build community. I'm going to lead from a place of wanting and ensuring that everyone has a sense of belonging. Lead from a place where I ask lots of questions because I want to learn about all of the people who make up Dillard. So I'm excited to take this journey, take a journey with each of us.
You are the product of an HBCU. Your parents are the products of HBCU. And so here you are at Dillard. Does it feel like this is kind of a full circle moment for you in a way?
Absolutely. It's at homecoming. HBCUs have really created opportunities for African Americans, and even many people don't know, but for a lot of women in our nation too, who weren't allowed to go to colleges, they oftentimes went to HBCUs. And it's a homecoming because we have provided opportunities for African Americans and other people of color to really obtain middle class status in America. And when you educate one member of our family, we bring the whole family along with us. And if you look at some of our first generation college students and alumni, they now are leaders of Fortune 500 companies. They are nurses at the top of their game. They are physicists. They are people who are business leaders and thinkers and politicians and attorneys and judges. And they're not just middle class now. They're reaching other socioeconomic levels way above that. And so it's a homecoming because I want every student who is already a leader in his or her own right, whether they're artists or they have athletic abilities, they're just a great thinker. I want them to come and be a part of our community. And I want to cultivate in them even more leadership skills where they can honestly live ethically. And that is so critical. and I want them to have the opportunity to grow and to learn how to communicate and think precisely. I love to say that clear speaking, clear writing shows clear thinking. So I want them to be precise communicators and clear thinkers, critical and creative thinkers. And I also want them to grow here where they can act courageously. I remember hearing stories of my father when he was in college in Baltimore at Morgan State University, great institution, but he participated in sit-ins. He wanted to make sure that the doors of opportunity were open to all. And now that we have equal opportunity, I want our students to act courageously so that we can break down the injustices that happen. I'm excited to get engaged with our Center for Racial Justice, because we need to fight for equal opportunities for all and to stop those unconscious biases that close doors, whether it's in policing in the criminal justice arena or if it's breaking down corporate America doors. There's a war on talent, and I know that the talent, the leaders that Dillard produces, man, we're gonna change the world. We're gonna make it a better place. So to be a part of that legacy of the oldest HBCU, to come home, just like I graduated from the HBCU, my brother did, my mother got her nursing degree from a historically Black college, or institution, I should say. My dad, it's a coming home celebration.
You focused a little bit in your last answer on thinking and communicating precisely. You have a background that some people may not expect from someone who is becoming president of a college or a university. A big background, a distinguished background in public relations. Talk about your background.
Ever since I was a little girl, I loved to ask lots of questions. And I was probably the one who got on everyone's nerves raising their hand and asking questions.
Oh, you were the one, the class is almost over, and you asked it, oh man, okay.
And sat up front, absolutely. As I got into high school, loved being a cheerleader. So if you see me clapping a lot, I love to clap because I'm a great cheerleader. I want to cheer on our community. But also, I love solving problems. I got involved in student council. And all of those things combined, my dad said, I think you can do something like this professionally. Get your journalism bug, but also solve the problems. And so he actually introduced me to the career of public relations, because I get to write and report and to tell amazing stories. But at the same time, I get to be part of the solution and to solve problems and to really build what I'd like to say mutually beneficial relationships between an organization like Dillard and all the different people that we serve, whether it's the community. And I want Dillard to be a big part of the Dillard community with the greater New Orleans community, particularly here in Gentilly. But I also want to think about our alumni and bringing them closer together, and so that we can support them for a lifetime and that they might continue to invest in us with their time and their talent and even a bit of their treasure. And the business community and the government, all of those are things that I learned through public relations. All of those groups have an impact on Dillard, just as our students do. And we want to invest in our students, but we also want to invest in our faculty and our staff. And that's what public relations taught me, is how to build those relationships, how to use stories, how to listen to people, and how to make the world a better place. So although it may seem like PR people are, P.T. Barnum's a sucker born every day, no, that is not public relations. Public relations is really about improving the lives of other people and helping organizations to change so that we can act in the best interest of our publics, the people who depend on us and the people that we depend on in order for us to achieve our mission. So I think that background actually helps me as a president, because I have to think about all of our stakeholders, those who have donated to us, and be a good steward of those gifts, but also to the students and the families who entrust us with the next 4 years of their life to take them to another level of leadership. And because I'm a teacher, that's what we're about. We're here to cultivate leaders. And part of that is teaching. Whether you are a custodian and you're making sure that our hallways and our residence halls and our classrooms are clean and neat, or if you are, a full professor and leading a section. We all are here to mentor and to coach our students. So my background as a teacher, my background as a professional communicator, as a public relations person, an accredited public relations person, which means I follow ethics, and I make a pledge to do so, an oath to do so. I think all of that will help Dillard to continue to grow and to develop and to be sustained for a long time.
And let the PR church say amen. You hit the ground running your first week, 7 days. You were here for 7 days. You signed an MOU with the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I told people when they asked me about you, I said, she has so much energy. She has a lot of energy. Where does that energy come from, President Ford?
I think it's partly hereditary, but I also think that, I'm grounded in my faith, honestly. And when God gives you gifts, then we need to use them to help other people. So I'm not doing things to make Rochelle look better. I'm trying to make the world, and particularly Dillard University, better, because that's the gift that God gave me and I want to share it. And so do I work a lot? Yeah, evidently I talk in my sleep. That's what my family says. And I wake up and I say things that I've been dreaming about. It typically might be something related to work and I have an idea, so I got to write it down. But I say that is because I think that's what Dillard does on a regular basis. I have met faculty and staff and students who are waking up every day thinking about Dillard and how they can be better. The faculty and staff that worked 24/7 to reopen the doors when electricity went out because of a storm. They stayed and they helped to ensure that continuity of learning happened. And so in signing the partnership agreement, the memorandum of understanding, the partnership with the Department of Homeland Security, they're the ones that help with FEMA, that help with emergency situations. And as we know, this whole coast, whether you're in Texas, all the way through the panhandle of Florida and up and down the East Coast, we are experiencing a lot of weather emergencies. It's not just New Orleans, it's all coastal arenas, as well as the whole nation is experiencing things like tornadoes and all that we never expected. It really is the whole nation. It is not just us. But by signing that MOU, we're going to be better able to prepare leaders to go into the marketplace, whether it's government or private industry or in nonprofits, so that they can serve our communities to make them safe in the midst of an emergency. It'll open up additional opportunities for training of our faculty and staff so that we can be better responders when crises happen. So to hit the ground running day one is about getting to know our community, getting to know our students, getting to know those who have supported us, and making sure that we have relationships that will help sustain the university for years to come.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Some of our students are going to get to meet Dr. Ford, the professor.
Yeah.
Our mass communication students. What are they in for?
What are they in for? Read RateMyProfessor.com. So on a serious note, I think that I hope they will find, and this is what students have said about me, is that I care deeply. I want all of my students to succeed, but I'm going to push them. I'm going to push them. I'm going to hold them accountable for learning. Some of my students laughed and said, yeah, when I hand back their first writing assignments, they see more ink than they see things that they typed. But I'll give them feedback and I'll sit down and I will talk with them to make sure they understand what I wrote, why I wrote it, and how they can make that next step forward. In the industry of public relations, there's generally no right or wrong answers. There's no campaign that's going to be guaranteed to work. So I teach people the methodology that will hopefully help them have greater success and challenge them to be able to critically think, to be creative, and to defend their answers. There's no right or wrong way even to lead a university. But what I can say is that we need to do our homework, we need to do our research. We also need to make sure that we create realistic plans with visionary outcomes and that we implement them within budget and on time, and we hold each other accountable, knowing who is doing what. And then we also make sure that we evaluate and see how we did and figure out how we do it better. That's what I teach in my classroom, a simple 4-step process of research, setting objectives, having programs and implementing them with timelines and people responsible within budget, and evaluating. If we see things are going down the wrong path, change it up and do better. And I do that in my teaching. I know what the outcomes of the course are supposed to be. I have a strategy that I say in the syllabus. This is what we're going to do. This is how I'm going to assess you. And if students haven't learned, then I'm going to figure out how can I teach that better. Let's pause. Let's go back. Let's regroup. Now, when I say that I'm a tough cookie, I'll do so with a smile. I have a rule that if it's late, it's a 0. I don't accept late work. It's a 0. But guess what I'll do? I will still grade it, and I'll give it back to you so that you learn and you improve. But I'm holding you accountable for the learning, and I'm holding you accountable for making sure you learn how to meet deadlines. And I think I manage in the same way. I believe deeply in my students. I believe deeply in my faculty colleagues and my staff colleagues. But we're going to set high standards. We're going to have excellence without excuse. That's a phrase that we used in the honors program that I graduated from as an undergraduate. That's their motto. And I've adopted that personally because Dillard is excellence. We're building leaders here. Therefore, we can't make excuses for what we did or didn't do. We need to do everything as the Bible would say, into the glory of God, and we want to do that in a positive, amazing way. But I recognize not everybody has the same faith tradition, but the point is that we want to be excellent in all that we do.
You have a theme, activating our commitment.
Yes.
And you are passionate about that.
Yes.
Talk about that theme.
Absolutely. Each of us have a commitment. Our commitment is grounded in the mission of Dillard University. And in those words, what do they mean? What does it mean to be an historically Black institution? How can we continue to provide opportunities? How can we make sure that we dissect the past and we challenge, the norms of the day? That's what historically Black institutions have done. How do we lean into that? A commitment to doing that wherever we walk. There's a commitment there. What commitment do we have to cultivating leaders? And it can't just be an emotional commitment. It has to be one of action. And it's the same thing with students. They've asked their families, they've asked the federal government, they have asked, scholarship donors that they're on a mission to obtain a higher education, to obtain a degree, or to earn a certificate. They're here on a mission. They need to activate on that commitment and to graduate and to do their part of continuing to seek scholarship funding, to get the FAFSA submitted on time, to keep and maintain high academic standing. Just like the faculty have a commitment to show up and be the most engaged teachers that they can, so that it's not listening to a lecture which will make everybody go to sleep, but instead problem sets and case studies and experiments and getting out and doing service learning, activating on that commitment to be an amazing teacher. Whether you're an accountant or you're a mechanic on campus, whatever it might be, how do we do that with excellence and not just say the words we believe in this mission, but how do we live it out? And you know what? I want our corporate partners to do the same thing. In 2020, one of the most horrible things we've seen in modern day, to see the brutal killing of George Floyd. And we had to watch it while we were all trapped home in the midst of COVID. So many companies So many organizations said, you know what, we need to double down on our commitment to social justice. We need to double down and do more in terms of our efforts in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They made a whole lot of verbal commitments. The question is, have they activated on that commitment and done something about it? Are they leading and acting courageously? Well, I want them to know that Dillard University is ready to be their partner, because we have amazing talent in our students. We have amazing talent in our alumni base who are entrepreneurs that you can hire. They're freelancers who are working in this gig economy. We want those companies to invest in us and our students and our communities that we represent, and absolutely in our alumni. And I'm ready to be their partner if they're ready to make sure that they are activating on their commitment too.
You really like the part of the mission, I've noticed, about cultivating leaders who live ethically.
Yes.
And you just talked about diversity, equity, inclusion. How do we get our students to a place that when they're ready to go out and they're ready to lead, that they are advocating in an effective way when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, to ensure that we get out of this place where people are just checking boxes for that? How do you see that happening?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion for me is not a code word for Black. Within the African American community, we have diversity, different faiths, we have different ages, we have different socioeconomic levels, we have difference in genders and sexuality, gender identifications. We need to understand the diversity within our own people group. It's one thing to be Black, but it's also important that we accept the differences even within our own community, and to be willing and open to learning about the differences that may not exist on our campus, but when we walk off campus, to get to know the Jewish community, to get to know the Muslim community, to get to know the Caucasian community, to get to know the conservative Christian community, to get to know all of that. We have to learn and be open in the same way that we want those communities to learn and to be open about us. So cultivating leaders means that we're cultivating inclusive leaders who respect the differences and don't expect you to change to communicate with me, but being open to find our commonalities so that we can speak the same language, so that we can move this world better. Most of us don't wake up and say, how can I take down America? How can I take down the company that's feeding me and giving me a paycheck every week? We don't typically wake up and say that. There may be fringe people, and I'm not talking about those fringe people. But most of us wake up and we feel good about being a member of this Dillard community. Most of us wake up being thankful for the jobs and opportunities we have. Therefore, we need to think about how we can uplift those institutions, how we can lean into optimism to make them better, how we can give people the benefit of the doubt. Because you know what? All of us have foot in the mouth disease. I do. I say things that I wish I would have never said. I've done things that I wish that I would have never done. And I hope that you show me a little grace and a little mercy, and you forgive me a little bit. Now, if I keep stepping on your toe after you told me that that's my foot you're stepping on, and I keep stepping on it, then maybe we're gonna hold up something's going on there. But part of that inclusive leadership means that we allow people to make mistakes and we don't wear it here. Yeah, you hurt my feelings with those words, but let me tell you why. Let me help you to understand where I'm coming from. Let me try to lean in to understand what you said so that we can build and grow together.
Last question. We are going to invest a lot at Dillard institutionally in writing our legacy. How do you see yourself writing your legacy?
When I think about writing my legacy at Dillard, I want people to remember me as someone who really leaned into building community and a sense of belonging. I want people hopefully to remember me as someone who led with an inclusive spirit where people felt like they could bring their whole self to work or to school and not have to hide any piece of their identity. I want people to remember my legacy time at Dillard, that I had a burning to learn and to grow as I became part of this community and to share our stories through that inquisitiveness. I want people to remember me as someone who looked at life with optimism and always saw the hope in the situation. I want them to say, yeah, she's a realist. She got what our challenges were, but she faced them head on so that we could be better than where the challenge was when she found it, and lean into that optimism. Because I believe in Dillard. I believe in our faculty, our students, our staff, our alumni, and I appreciate and want to work alongside all of our supporters because I believe that we are going to do an amazing thing and grow our legacy together.
President Rochelle Ford, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Many thanks to President Rochelle L. Ford for joining Conversations on the Oaks. To learn more about President Ford, go to dillard.edu/president. Conversations on the Oaks is brought to you by the Dillard University Office of Communications and Marketing. Subscribe to Conversations on the Oaks and rate it on your favorite podcast platform: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, and more. Until next time, I'm Eddie Francis. Thank you for downloading this episode of Conversations on the Oaks.